Welcome back. Today we're talking about inherited IRAs again. Hi, I'm Michelle Smallenberger, a fee-only financial advisor here at FDS. And if you're looking for videos on financial topics, you want to be sure and subscribe to our channel. Now today, here's what we're going to talk about specifically. First, we're going to talk about the facts that you need to know, the information you need to know about these Pre-Secure Act inherited IRA distributions. And the date that really matters here is January 1st of 2020. So keep that in mind. And then we're going to talk about the strategy for these distributions. And now that you have the information and the knowledge, now you can figure out what should you do or what can you do in light of your own financial situation. All right, an inherited IRA simply means that someone you love has passed away and they didn't use money during their lifetime, so they've left these funds to you and maybe other beneficiaries. So you've now inherited these funds and now you need to know what to do. Now the date that I've already mentioned that matters is this January 1st of 2020. What this means is you need to know when your loved one passed away. If they passed away before January 1st of 2020, then you want to keep watching this video because it applies to you. If they passed away after January 1st of 2020, then you want to go find our other video that talks about Post-Secure Act inherited IRA distributions. The Secure Act was legislation that basically changed the rules for inherited IRA distributions, and it's very important to know what you need to do. So, for anyone who was pre-Secure Act, let's keep going. Now, it's important to understand the reason that we want to make sure that we're following these rules and know this information. If we don't take out the distributions from these IRAs that we've inherited in time or on the timeline that we need to, it could mean up to a 50% penalty of the amount we should have withdrawn. So it is very important, and we just want to avoid those costs if at all possible, and you can. And so now what we need to make sure of is that we know what we need to do. We're seeing a lot of people that are working with financial professionals, but they can't give them the answers they need. They don't know or aren't quite sure of what rules they should follow. And that's exactly why we're doing these videos. But it's also why you need to make sure that you're working with someone who can tell you and knows and can tell you why you need to do what. All right, now that you know you've inherited an IRA before January 1st of 2020, let's talk through the options that you have. So very simply, you may have an IRA, you may have a Roth IRA, you may have a SEP IRA, a simple IRA, and you may just have a qualified retirement account. So think 401k, 403b, these types of accounts. These may be types of accounts that these rules will apply to. So this is why we're going to give you these options, and then just know that when you look at the statement, it might say Roth IRA or IRA, and we know this can bring more confusion. So that's just why I want to kind of simplify this for you. So the first option, if this is the account that you have inherited, is that you can move these funds. So we're going to move these funds to your own account. Now, this only applies if you were the spouse. So if you are the spouse, you can move these funds into your own IRA. You can just put them into an IRA just like your money is, only if you were the spouse. Now, if you weren't a spouse, you were anyone else, you can move these funds to an inherited, what is now called an inherited IRA. Now, the reason I kind of listed some of these other accounts is because it may be an inherited Roth IRA. So it could be some other version of an IRA, and I just don't want you to get mixed up if you kind of see them titled different ways. So this is the second thing you can do, is you can open an inherited IRA, and now this gets moved, those funds, into that account, the inherited account. The difference here is you can see it's going from your own account if you're the spouse, or an inherited IRA or Roth, the IRA type, if you're not. All right, something else you can do is you could actually disclaim these funds. So maybe you decide that you don't need this money or you don't want this money for some reason, and there could be a lot of them, which we'll talk about, but you could disclaim this IRA. You could say, I don't want these funds. So that is an option. And then finally, you could just take a full distribution of all the money. You could just take it out of the account. So just remove it all at once. Just take a lump sum distribution. Now, you can tell these are 4 very different options, and so what you want to do is going to be dependent on your situation. So let's just talk a little bit, some of the rules around each of these different scenarios. If you were the spouse and you now move this money into your account, you can now take this money out over your lifetime. So this just means that, let's say if you are younger than your spouse who passed away, you can actually now put this money in your account like you've done. And now when you turn the age you need to start taking required minimum distributions, you can take that money out then. You don't need to start doing it now, for example. Now, you want to be sure that if this is the way that you're going, this would be purposeful. This would be something that you're saying, I want to go ahead and make this part of mine because it fits with my financial plan. Now, we've got videos on your required minimum distributions and what to do with those. So you can check out those videos because now this one might apply to you if this is the first thing that you've decided you want to do in moving it into your own account. Now, with the inherited IRA, you've realized you're not the spouse, and so now you know that this rule applies to you. One thing you can do is to move these funds into an inherited IRA. Now what you need to do is actually learn and understand how much you need to start taking out each year, because there are rules and tables that you do need to follow to make sure you're taking money out each year. So you'll notice that as the spouse, you could delay that. You could wait and take it out over your lifetime. However, now as an inherited IRA, as a recipient of that, you need to take money out each year. And so this is where a lot of people will get caught up, and honestly this is where people don't know. And so they'll realize they're receiving an inherited IRA, and the financial professional that they're working with, just usually it's at the place where they get the account from, can't necessarily answer this question for them. So this is why we see a lot of people reaching out to work with a financial advisor. Like we've talked about, the penalties can be high, and so you want to be sure you're doing what you need to when you need to. All right, now if you disclaim this money, there's nothing else you need to do. And actually, I want to be clear, there's nothing else that you can do. So you cannot decide if you don't want this money. You cannot decide who does get it. So usually, as a beneficiary or as someone who's naming beneficiaries, you might list one person or you might list a few different people. But if you disclaim this money, you cannot decide who does get it. So that's something I think some people think, well, great, I won't take it and I'll give it to my kids. They might be named as a beneficiary after you, so that actually might be the result of you disclaiming it. However, you aren't the person that gets to decide that. You simply decide if you want to receive it or not. And then finally, taking a full distribution. Now, this is probably the one that could have the biggest tax impact for you immediately if you were to do this. So what you want to be sure of is you need to know the tax consequences that you will pay, the taxes you will owe. That's what you need to know before you do this option. You want to be sure that you've gotten help from your accountant or a financial advisor who is going to help you to understand how much you're going to pay in taxes because of this full distribution that you're taking out of the IRA. And what you have to realize is that if you're working, if you have other assets that you get income from, this is going to be on top of that. And so this is why I say be sure that someone's helping you so that you know what you're going to pay in taxes, because it could be a lot more, and that might change your decision to do this option. All right, I want to touch on one question that we do hear from people, and that's what if there are other beneficiaries? What happens if there's 4 people that are listed, for example? So I'm going to use this example here as the inherited IRA because there's not going to be multiple spouses that are named. But in this one, let's say that there's 4 of you, and each of you are supposed to inherit 25%. When you're thinking about these rules and these options for you, this matters because really what you're doing is you're saying the IRA itself, and let's just say for an example that this is $100,000, that's the total IRA, and there's 4 beneficiaries, you're each going to inherit $25,000. So what happens is you basically get your percent of the total IRA. Now, in the simplest case, this could just mean that you get your 25% and that's put in a separate account that now you can go and do what you need to with your inherited IRA. In the most complex cases, it could be that a trust was actually named the beneficiary, and now the trust needs to manage these distributions each year, and they simply just tell you what your distribution is that year. It gets calculated with the multiple ages of the beneficiaries. These rules can be complex, and so this is where, in this situation, you're not going to be able to do a lot of planning. It may just be that you're told what your distribution is that year, and so you just kind of have to live with it. That's in the most complex state. Now, we've started to talk a lot about the strategy and how it impacts your financial plan. And so there are things that if you say, you know, I don't need this money, or my beneficiaries don't need this money now or in the future, there are so many things that you can do. You don't have to keep it, even disclaim it. You could decide that you want to give this money away to charities. So there are so many planning strategies that if you decide this may not be for you or one or the other option, there's things you can do. And there's ways that we can actually manage the taxes in the process if you decide those are things you like as well. So if this has been helpful for you, please feel free to check out any of our other videos. You can also check out our blog, or also just schedule a time. If this is something that you haven't gotten a good answer for yourself and you need to know what to do, reach out, schedule a time, and we can help you put together your financial plan and manage this along the way for you so you know you're doing it right. You'll have the clarity you need because you know what you're doing, you understand, and so now you can be confident that what you're doing is impacting your financial plan positively. All right, I'll see you next time.